Times have been tough over the past few years for traditional media, newspapers in particular around the globe. The status quo in Namibia is no different, as media houses, including the Namibian, engage in a struggle for sustainability at a time when the audience has largely been captivated by the digital space, especially social media, and the COVID pandemic has exacerbated an already dire situation. But there are beacons of hope, as print are engaged in finding innovative solutions and alternatives to sustain good journalism. So there's big news breaking at the Namibian, where editor Tangeni Amupadhi and his team are about to branch into radio. With me today to talk about this exciting new initiative is Tangeni himself and Jossy Joss, or Joseph Ailonga, who is broadcast manager of the news station. Thank you both for taking time today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Gwen.
I'm Gwen Lister, host of the NMT's Free Speak podcast, in which we talk about all things media. Tangeni, can we start with you? The radio project has been some time coming now. Can you talk a little bit about what motivated this decision?
All right, let me first just rephrase a bit. It's not simply radio.
Right.
That's why we have called it a broadcast center or broadcast unit. We've set up a fully fledged broadcast center.
Okay.
You are right about the radio that is just about to start.
Okay.
But we have been broadcasting since February already. Through Facebook especially. We've done a lot of videos. We've put up several shows a week on sports, business, general news and current affairs, as well as health matters.
Okay.
As for radio, as coincidences would have it, just 2 weeks ago, Jean Sutherland, our former news editor, was cleaning up her desk to help make space for the broadcast center.
Okay.
And she found a document.
Oh, yes.
And this was the radio project proposal I did in the 90s, in the mid to the late 90s. And I was quite surprised that it's more or less what we are doing now. I haven't revisited this for a long, long time. But that's just to say, or to agree with you that this radio project has been a long time coming. Then unrelated to the Namibian, but you would remember I introduced this to you because I see I've also made mention of our discussion as to how this radio station, which we had planned to call Ohungi, was going to dovetail with the Namibian. So I guess it's just time. Time has come that we had to go for it, especially since the print journalism is shrinking for no fault of our own, but just changing habits of society.
Right.
So we thought, why should we allow our audiences, our readers, so we used to say, just disappear into nowhere.
Exactly.
When we know they still consume our product.
Okay.
We know that they still like our news. How do we know? Radio stations around Namibia have been using our content.
Right.
So
Yes.
TV stations have been using our content. Other news organizations online have been feeding off our content.
So time to do it yourself.
It's time we thought, why can't we retain our audience on different platforms?
Okay.
And radio would be one of those major arenas that we can retain our audiences.
Great. I'm going to talk to you more about that just now. Tangeni, just to turn quickly to Jossy. Jossy, on the technical side of things, obviously that's your métier. How long did it take to get a broadcasting license? And maybe you can tell us a little bit about, Tangeni's already sketched the scenario of the broadcast unit, but when is Desert Radio itself going to go live on air?
Well, we currently are live doing just tests, but we're hoping that we would then go full on live to the public online by the 28th.
Okay.
That also gives us an opportunity to hear the feedback from the listeners.
Exactly.
And then we would then go terrestrial live on around the 15th of October.
Okay.
As we then had to wait to make sure that at the end of the day we have everything in place. We do not breach the regulations beforehand, so we did not do any purchases of transmitters before that. So we wanted to make sure that we are definitely compliant in all aspects, and we had to wait for that license. We got the license around the 2nd of August.
Right.
I think it was around the 2nd of August that we got it. That took about roughly around 6 months, five to 6 months. That's the process that normally CRAN takes.
Okay.
It's based on the fact that CRAN needs to really go through the applications thoroughly. There's a number of other applicants that come through,
right.
So they would have to go through all of those applications to make sure whether this is the right applicant that we would then assign the license to. So we definitely took the time. Starting November to put together the whole application, because we wanted to make sure that we do things right. Yes. And we don't fall short on some of those requirements. Exactly. That CRAN looks for. So that's in a nutshell how long it took.
Okay, good. Tangeni, I'm going to turn to you again just to ask you about the issue. I mean, good journalism, good independent journalism is at the heart of the Namibian. What is your thinking on radio? And this question, sustainability of good journalism. Can radio help towards this end? And because then you look at the future, the Namibian's going to have a print edition, an online presence, a strong one, and of course then a radio station. How do you decide what goes where, and what's the strategy behind such decisions? I know it's a multifaceted question.
The first point or strategy is we have one newsroom.
Right.
That's
for
it.
Everything. Okay.
Why? Because that's our core business.
Right.
We are a news and current affairs organization. And it doesn't matter what technology, what platform we are putting out. News is news, and we want to do it well based on our mission of providing strong, independent journalism. So what goes first where is the decision that gets taken on the ground.
Okay.
So the journalists, together with their editors, including Jossy, whether it's the news editor, the investigative editor, the broadcast station manager, and the assigning editor for broadcast, because we will then have those different facets.
Right.
They would say, this story must go out now. It can't wait.
Okay. For print,
I think,
in other words,
exactly.
It's a breaking news story.
Exactly.
Right.
It can't wait for print.
Yeah.
So it probably has to go out digitally now, or simultaneously broadcast and digital.
Okay.
Some of it, as with the arrival of Christine Boma and Masilingi, went live.
Absolutely.
Immediately, both visually and on radio and digitally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting going forward. Jossy, you want to chip in?
So I just wanted to say this, some of these things are already happening.
Right.
So that we just needed to streamline who says this, who goes,
exactly.
who puts this together. So we've done that, and I think that was the one thing that helped ease the whole confusion, and it put everything into perspective. But everything was already being done. You had your the multimedia supervisor, if you have to put it in that way, or editor. Deciding. That was sort of deciding, and with the rest of the news, the editorial team, and it has been working. So the amount of content that goes on online is pretty much the same as what we're going to be doing with radio. So. It's sorted out.
I don't know. I asked the question because, journalists are quite territorial.
Yeah.
And I mean, even if the Namibian has these components, You will find the radio journalists want to scoop the print and so on, but that's healthy. And I think as long as there's a happy medium and all the listeners and viewers and readers know what to expect, you'll find the recipe going forward.
Yeah, I was just about to say we have to be frank. There will be some gray areas. At times, there will be tension.
Yeah.
But for us, that's creative tension. If you don't have that tension, that means people are really complacent. And I wouldn't want to have a team that's too complacent.
Yeah.
Even when we were just a print newspaper that waits for 10 hours before it hits the street.
Exactly.
We used to compete for stories.
Yeah.
And the editors have to sort us out, whether it's now Max and Tangeni trying to compete who gets the story to the news desk first.
Yes.
Eventually, the editors would have told us, no, look, guys, you can't all be chasing one source.
Yeah.
If both of you want to work on this story, sort it out as to who takes which angle of that story.
Exactly.
So it's a similar thing on a multi-platform context. Yeah.
And Tangeni, I also ask, maybe just specifically perhaps address the issue of your investigative desk.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously we always used to investigative stories going into print because they're normally very complex and, they a lot of investigation data. How are you going to work with that going? Just briefly.
Okay.
It's the same issue.
I was about to say that was then.
Yes.
The investigative unit, as is, for the past 2, 3, maybe even 4 years, has anyway been producing broadcast material.
Right. Okay.
Videos and audio-visual material. So it's really just about how do we now maybe consciously go do the same work.
Right.
So that the broadcast material that we used to put on YouTube and Facebook, for instance, is deliberately lined up for that it's not an afterthought.
Exactly.
But
good.
They're already doing that work.
Wonderful. And it's just a matter of viewers, listeners, and readers getting used to saying, okay, I need to watch this online, I need to listen to that on radio, or I need to buy the paper.
We will be offering a full buffet.
A buffet, that's
of
a wonderful
news
word.
services.
Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of a bouquet, a buffet.
Buffet.
Jossy, how did you come up with, a lot of people are going to ask the question, Desert Radio. Where does that come from? How did you come to the name?
Well, we had a internal competition that we ran with, and we were looking at the different names, and someone came up with the name of Desert Radio.
Okay.
The reason behind
Desert FM for that matter.
Or Desert FM. We actually just had changed it to radio because the FM wasn't. It was very prescriptive to terrestrial.
Right.
So we wanted to change that.
Okay.
But Namibia sits between two deserts. One of the oldest desert and the second biggest desert in the world, and on the other side you've got the Kalahari, which is the Namib Desert, and then you've got the Kalahari. It's a desert country. So we wanted to say, look, this is the voice of the desert. This is where the people that live in this desert country come together and air whatever it is that they would want to air. And it's definitely going to be well packaged, professionally done, and literally that's really what Desert Radio is about. Is creating that oasis of Namibian voices. So people are able to go and say, where do I quench my thirst on news content? And the Namibian is a center for that, and they wanted an extension, and Desert Radio becomes that extension.
So in the name also is kind of an implicit promise that this is going to have 100% coverage, and people in the desert are going to be able to access Desert Radio. Jossy, talk a little bit about your footprint.
We want to do that.
Right.
We are going to do that. So we already are looking at the areas that we want to touch on, and we want to make sure that at the end of the day, across Namibia, people should be able to access desert radio. And that's important for us because and now as we speak, you know that there's that deliberate a policy that has been set up by the UN where you say the voices of the people must be heard, and we're creating partnerships with your community radio stations, so that we give them a voice. So that's a promise that we want to keep to the Namibian people, and we want to make sure that at the end of the day we give everyone in Namibia a voice. It might not be through full-on 100% terrestrial coverage, but we are creating different platforms for you to be able to access it. Where there is 100% network or internet coverage, we will be there because we are also available on online. The app will be able to take care of you on that. It's simplified, but we're also working around making sure that people can get data and they don't have to stress about paying for data daily. It could just be a monthly type of arrangement. I don't want to get into too much into that because we're still working on that. But we have had discussions with the network operators, one of the network operators, and we are working on zero rating the app in such a way that people can access the app anyway, so that they don't have to stress about the data, and you can be anywhere in the country or globally. But this is mostly for Namibia, but every Namibian would then be able to enjoy that by paying a small fee, and then throughout the month you don't have to stress about data.
Good. We'll wait to hear more about that as you... I wanted to say, radio is obviously, I think without doubt, the strongest medium on the African continent. And I mean, Afrobarometer surveys and others bear this out. Radio is still very vibrant medium. But I wanted to ask you, in the setting up of this radio question, maybe it goes to both of you. Did you have any kind of role models? And I'll come to the issue of content and the what's going to be out there a little bit later. But did you have any sort of radio role models elsewhere on the continent or further afield that you kind of looked at the recipe for success for desert radio? Tangeni, maybe start with you. Was there, or did you kind of just work in your own?
I think it's a multitude of factors or examples. I, for instance, would have shared with Jossy about how I really love SAFM, the SABC station in South Africa. They tend to have a good mix of content, current affairs, news, current affairs, in entertainment.
Talk?
I mean, lifestyle. Bit of talk, but not talking heads kind of talk.
Exactly.
But talk as in engagement with the listeners. Programs that come in. And of course, with that, documentaries, investigative pieces.
So it's a real mixture of...
Yes.
Because often you think of these sort of commercial radio stations, you tend to think of music 24/7. So that's why this is obviously going to be different.
Yeah, we're not going to do that.
We don't want to waste the Namibians already natural content.
Yeah. So what music will be there? It's an entertainment station. But it's a news. It's 50%. We're giving it in 50% entertainment. So music will fall. Music will fall under that 50% of that entertainment. There will be others. For example, comedy. We'll have satire. So we want to make sure that the news and the programs are well packaged. We're training, getting everybody to a certain level, so that what you listen to should be at the same level as what BBC is doing, RFI is doing,
NPR, NPR stations in the US.
Doing.
Okay.
And your 702s and your Kaya FM, SAFM,
Yeah.
what they're doing, because what they do is they make sure that they prepare very well so that whatever they provide to you,
Yeah.
you should be happy about.
Right.
And it shouldn't just be rushed work that you hear and then you go, why are they doing this?
Exactly.
So what we will make sure of is that the news, once it's being provided, it will be taken care of on a professional level.
Exactly.
But we will have programs that are set. We've got a great program grid. I think it really looks really good.
Okay.
We now just want to make sure that what we have on paper is really what we are doing in the field.
Okay.
And that's really what we are aiming for, so it to be contentful.
Right.
Take the Namibian. I always say take the Namibian on a Friday, and think of it.
And put
audio and visuals on there.
Onto that, right.
We will probably add another 30% that might not be currently happening with the Namibian, but that is only because of the fact that we want to create that image in the mind of the listener, and then when we have it live on our online streaming platforms or video streaming platforms, you then look at it and go, wow, okay, this is what I was listening to.
Because I'm sure there's an incredible sense of anticipation that will be building once people know that this is happening, and their question would be, how is this going to be different? So I think you've both helped answer that question, Tangeni. How's it going to be different to whatever else is out there?
Right. But what we don't want to compromise on is character of being bold.
Exactly. And also excellence,
cutting
right?
edge.
Yes.
We want to stick with being bold and cutting edge.
Right.
We want to challenge stereotypes.
Yeah.
As the Namibian has been challenging.
Telling it like it is, in other words.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So we definitely would love to have a station that adapt to its audience, to its listeners.
Correct, and what they want.
Yeah, so
which is important.
We've put some stuff on paper, but have left, as Jossy would say, a 30% room to pivot where we see that things are not being well received. Right. Maybe it's our...
Or unpopular, or
content
you switch it up.
Yeah. Right. I mean, but not just unpopular because it's... People don't like to talk about sexuality, for example. You know, not
Did you do some audience research, Tangeni or Jossy, whoever wants to answer that before you, or have you done, or do you plan to do, or will that happen in the course of the rollout?
It will happen in the course of the rollout. We've just done desktop. One has done desktop research that we had done as we were working on this. So it was pretty much desktop. But what we are going to do is we're going to make sure that we will do research to look at the programming and for people to be able to give their input into that programming. So we'll have surveys that will be running. That is definitely why we're also looking at the term of the broadcast grid.
Exactly.
What is the term going to be, so that after that period you go back into the field, you get to find out what people like and what people don't like.
Exactly.
So that's what
we'll move ahead with. Okay. Tangeni, one of the things you've mentioned already, there's one newsroom going forward. But now what you need to ensure, obviously, is that your journalists are multi-skilled or multitaskers for a multimedia environment. And that probably comes with some discomfort and probably, because as I said earlier, not everybody is suited or journalist to one medium or the other, or can't do everything. What have you done in regard, or will this require a lot of additional training to get people up to speed? Because as Jossy's alluded to, every one of us know if you hear a very boring voice on radio, you kind of tune off. So you're going to have to adapt your staff skills to where the medium that suits them best in some ways. But they also have to be multi-skilled. This is a bit of a minefield, is it not? Are you prepared for that and the difficulties?
It's less a minefield, more of a field with opportunities.
Right. Okay.
Where different seeds can be planted and we can get a lot out of it.
Right.
It's true. People love their comfort zones.
Right. Exactly.
And there will be discomfort. But I think, especially for the old staff at the Namibian, by now there should be an appreciation that things do not always stay as
they are,
as we want them to be.
Yeah, and they had to adapt to the online space anyway.
Exactly.
So this is just another element.
Yeah. So what we probably don't want is too much multitasking.
Exactly.
But definitely multi-skilled.
Yeah, because too much multitasking, the quality can sometimes just...
Exactly. I wouldn't take a Werner and want to run him through all the different platforms.
Exactly.
Though he has gone to court and takes videos and package them. Yeah. But his strength is probably the wordsmith in the print sense.
And this is Werner Menges, who's a decades-long employee of the Namibian, great staff member who's done court reporting from the minute he started till the minute he's still here. Obviously.
Exactly. So you don't want to take him, for instance, away from the courts.
Right.
And then have a gap there and try to adapt him to report on some other beat, which
that's not going to suit him or the medium.
Yeah,
exactly.
But Werner is so multitask, you can send him to cover the budget, the national budget.
Absolutely.
So that kind of multi-skilling, it's going to be there. Talking of discomfort and maybe, in fact, we actually found, Jossy can bear me out here, we found out that the broadcast unit, me and Jossy had forgotten to include our old staff from the newsroom. And when they were approached, some of them were saying, we thought you didn't want us. Okay, we thought you just wanted new people come in.
I see.
So there are people who are already eager.
Question. Right. So
eager to adapt. To adapt.
That's what I wanted to say. Yeah. That there's quite a number of people that are excited to be part of the new venture, and venturing into new territory.
Okay.
But it's familiar territory.
Exactly.
Just perhaps maybe with a little bit of a twist, but they're really excited and eager to get onto the platforms. I mean, the amazing work that one has to look at some of the old guards, if you have to put it off the Namibian, when you look at it and you say, whoa, okay, because we've been doing some work here, and you look at that and you go, whoa, okay, this person really doesn't need so much work, or skilling.
Sure.
They really have what it takes to make this right and get it done.
Yes.
So there is a lot of excitement, and I think it's about a mind shift, and many of them have already shifted their minds, and I'm liking that.
Right.
I'm liking that.
The other thing
much.
I just wanted to chip in with Tangeni, just on the question of training, it begs the question, are you, with the training, and I know you're doing training, especially with this new move in sight, but are you training journalists? Are you training presenters? Are you training DJs? Because there is a difference, right? And you're looking at all the different employment prospects, if that's the right word, in media. I had a podcast the other day on artificial intelligence, with the editor of the Daily Maverick, and I was saying, are the newsrooms going to be loaded with these kind of technical people who are not journalists, but they're doing all this data deep diving or whatever it is? So one worries a little bit, is the real journalist, and I know maybe people take issue with the term, going to be lost when you have to pay attention to radio presenters and DJs, which is very different, isn't it?
No.
No? Okay, good.
No,
Take that forward, Tangeni.
We are having journalists. This is a news media company.
Yeah.
Well known as the Namibian.
Yeah.
We are heavy journalists. The only thing that we need to do is find the best suited journalists for the type of platform or technology.
Okay, that's a good way of answering that.
Really, that's what it is.
You almost convinced me.
I think you remember me telling you when I joined 10 years ago, Gwen, we have to go digital. We have to look at this new technology. And by then you were still convinced print is going nowhere.
Yeah.
The truth is, what is going nowhere is the journalism. The journalism stays the same. Human beings need to be informed.
They totally do.
All the time. We need to find out where our readers, listeners, viewers, all that multitude of audiences, where are they?
Yeah.
And we serve them their best news and information where they want it. And that is what we are working on. That's the biggest challenge.
If I may say, not to dilute good journalism in the process of this multi-platform
My
approach.
point exactly. You would find nowadays in the Namibian's newsroom, we have economists,
right?
We have accountants.
Absolutely. That's true.
I would love to have medical doctors.
Right.
I would love to have data specialists.
Exactly.
But that is the base of their technical training.
Yes.
Journalism
built on top of
can be built on top of that.
Got it. Okay. As I say, I look forward to seeing that.
So the days of journalists just going to a college and getting a generalistic knowledge without the appreciation of who their ultimate audience are, it's what we want to put behind us, so that a medical doctor could be speaking,
surely,
or reporting to the audience.
Absolutely.
In the sense that that medical doctor won't need to spend too much time learning the basics of what your body's anatomy is made up of, or what it looks like.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is.
Okay.
The journalism gets added on.
Fantastic. Jossy, anything to add to that, or you good?
No, I think it's all said. Point is, we're training all three, if you have to say, because
DJs, presenters,
Correct.
all of them. But the basis is journalism.
Is in journalism. That's that's
whatever it is that
hear,
you're gonna do after that, it doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
Basic journalism must be there.
Because we do see with some radio stations that the DJs out there who think they're journalists, and quite honestly, sometimes the content
but
is
wouldn't you want a DJ who takes you to Timbuktu and tells you this music is by Alifaka Touré.
Absolutely.
It was designed in this and that way.
But I would tend to disagree. Because I really think that there's a lot of DJs that think they're just DJs and don't realize that the medium they're using is powerful enough, and they need to learn to be journalists in the process so that they don't break those rules, especially when you're on air. It's important. And I think the problem comes with everybody thinking, oh no, I can just talk. That's all that I have to do. Just give me a script and I'll read it out and I'll say what I need to say. But it's wrong. Because the person needs to have the basic understanding of how to put that story together.
Grounding in journalism. And that's, as I say, giving me, really, it's helping me understand. And it also, I think that's the recipe for going forward to make a success.
A DJ needs to prepare to put that music program on air. Not just fill the air with music from anywhere.
Exactly, but to have, as you say, a focus and a knowledge of the field or the area that they're covering. So that's good to hear that the training focuses on that. But as we go towards the end of this podcast, guys, and I wish we had more time, but just to really try and summarize and to say to Tangeni, I guess we all know that newspapers were really impacted by two major factors, which is firstly readers fleeing to the online world, with advertisers following suit. And this, I think, is a critical question here. And this, in turn, saw the demise of print publications folding the world over. Generally, we say there's no silver bullet for the survival of good journalism, but traditional media, including yourselves, are looking at this range of possibilities to really help you become financially viable again. And we haven't touched on that yet, and yet it's critical to this discussion. You've obviously done your research, and I wonder whether you can tell us if you think the business world which largely abandoned print, let's face it, is now prepared to come on board with radio. What do you think? Are you going to get that sort of commercial support, advertising support that one needs to make this a viable and sustainable project?
Gwen, I think one can address this by saying the reason we embarked on this project at this stage is exactly because we want to meet our audiences, our listeners, our former readers, if they have abandoned print, which I don't think they have, where they are.
Okay.
And I think one of the main issues that especially the advertising decision makers out there need to understand. There's nothing that comes for mahala. The readers too, the audience.
Absolutely.
Nothing comes for free.
Although radio is freer than most, let's face it.
Well, it's not free, Gwen. No, somebody is paying for that. Somebody is paying to get it out there.
Yes. But I mean, for the actual listener, it's one of the
free
more
access.
accessible medium than online or print, for that matter.
Absolutely, yeah. Once the infrastructure is set up for the listener,
correct.
It's much cheaper.
Cheaper than most.
And yes, because you still have to have a set. Those days we used to call it a radio.
Right.
But now your radio is on your phone.
Absolutely.
And that's what puts me at ease. I don't have to worry too much about my core business, which is journalism.
Right.
Bold, hard-hitting journalism. I don't need to change much about that. It's delivering that service that is changing or that has been changing.
Okay.
So we reached over 1 million followers, hits, or whatever you call it, on social engagements, on social media, on all our social media platforms. Just actually 3 of them. We didn't count YouTube in that. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Yes.
We've got more than 1 million followers.
Wow. Okay.
On Facebook alone, our journalism, our posts have more than 1 million engagements a month.
Per week.
Per week, eh? Wow. So, per week, people engage with our content, with what we provide. They give us feedback, they trash us, or they like us.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Now, any right-thinking business
is going to
see that. Would want to have that.
A piece of the action. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
Otherwise, then they are not really in business to market their own work.
Okay.
So I think profitability, which is the one thing that will keep me awake, profitability / sustainability, is definitely why we are doing this.
Absolutely.
We want to keep providing the audience with the right kind of content, professionally packaged content, multi-packaged content. So this is one thing that we will just have to keep working at.
And I'm sure, I really look forward to seeing that happen and playing out. And I know it's going to be, I think, a very positive development.
So just to add on to that, globally, there's a thing that they're calling the hybrid offering.
Maybe, Jossy, stop there. Can I ask you, in what you're saying now, just to sort of sum up and say your last little...
let me do that.
Summarize, and then I'll give the floor to Tangeni.
Yeah, so that's the hybrid offering is basically multimedia offering that you're giving. It could be a newspaper coupled with TV or radio.
Correct.
It could be a newspaper coupled with the radio. And in many cases, all of them would carry sort of online, because every news media entity across the globe.
And the synergies between those are important.
Yeah, so they are creating, they're busy creating all of that. So this is the best way for profitability, sustainability.
Correct.
I think even your social media companies are doing that. You see Facebook acquiring Instagram and WhatsApp and coupling them together and packaging them as a way of gaining that data, that those numbers is what really matters, and they sell those numbers to advertisers.
Correct.
Just parting to just give you an indication of what the broadcast industry looks like for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yes.
But just let's look at 5 years. As of 2020, it was sitting at around 317 billion US dollars globally. And it was projected to reach 347 billion in 2021.
Right.
And by 2025, you're looking at 435 billion US dollars.
Wow.
And that growth has thought about the issues around COVID and what are the, despite all of that, it is growing. So there's some huge growth that's happening there. So you would want to tap into it. Whether you're a newspaper, is it because of your dying? It doesn't really matter. But if you're a media institution, you should think of how do I then continue with good quality journalism and not scratching my head up of how to, or thinking of ways of how to pay for it.
Right.
And these platforms are there, they're available. So tap into it, and then you just get a percentage, whether you're getting 2% of it, 1% of it, or 0.5% of 435 billion. You do the math. And
the growth, from what you've said, the growth of radio is absolutely clear, because that was going to be one of my questions.
Yeah.
Print died, and once upon a time we never thought it would, or it began to certainly go into its demise. And I was going to ask whether the same couldn't happen to radio, but I think you've assured me it's not going to happen for the foreseeable future.
Of course it can
Tangeni.
happen.
It can happen,
It can, but
we don't really know.
Not imminently. Tangeni, would you like to just make some final comments and just anything I may not have asked you that's critical for our listeners to hear about Desert Radio?
We are creating at the Namibian, or the Free Press of Namibia, the company that owns all these platforms.
Right.
We are creating a community, a society. Some in the US call it a membership, part of the membership economy. Just imagine you wake up at 4:30, 5 in the morning. Your email box will get greeted by a newsletter to follow your business stories of the day. Just
sure.
By 6 o'clock, 7, you get served on Desert Radio an update of what's been happening in the world and around you for 9 hours, including some fun stuff like satire Jossy mentioned. And then thereafter, lifestyle issues of your health, your business, music, entertainment. Throughout the day, you are getting your news bulletins both on radio. If you are driving, you can just tune in on radio because you can't read. But the moment you get to your desk or home, you've got the print version to focus your mind on that. And by the time you go to bed, maybe you would have watched a show on our television streamed via Facebook. So this is what we are trying to bring together here, so that we have a community that appreciates being served news, current affairs, and related information.
And something for everyone.
Exactly.
Kind of a really diverse...
Absolutely.
A buffet, as you put it. I think that's a wonderful word for bouquet.
Indeed. So that's what we are trying to put together, and I think we've managed to do quite a bit of that already.
Great.
Yeah.
Well,
the rest is to look forward to the formal launch and formal going on air with Desert Radio.
That's what I was going to say.
Your oasis in the desert.
Oh my goodness. I was just going to say thank you very much, Jossy and Tangeni, for taking time. I know that I'm eagerly looking forward to this. Because I think it's an amazing development, and as you say, it's about time and it's happening, and I'm sure everybody's looking forward to it. So, and I'm sure you welcome all the feedback that you can get from your listenership once they start tuning in, because that's how you will get it to the right recipe that everybody wants. So thank you very much, both of you, for taking time. I enjoyed this discussion, and hopefully we can revisit it once Desert Radio is up and going. So I look forward to that. Meanwhile, to everybody out there, thank you for listening. I'm your host, Gwen Lister, for the NMT's Free Speak podcast. Please catch us on iTunes and SoundCloud. Thank you both.